What if the person you keep calling family or friend isn't your safe place at all, but the reason you feel anxious for no clear reason? And what if the real trap is not that they hurt you, but that you keep excusing it because you're scared to be alone? And if that sentence hits you somewhere deep, stay with me, because this story might finally give you the courage you've been borrowing from tomorrow. Daniel was the kind of man who believed loyalty was a virtue no matter the cost, the type who replied fast, showed up early, forgave quickly, and stayed even when his heart was begging him to leave, because he grew up thinking good people don't quit on others, good people tolerate, good people understand, and for years that belief sounded noble until it started to feel like a prison. On the outside his life looked normal, a job that paid the bills, friends he'd known for years, a relationship that looked fine in photos, and a family circle that stayed connected. But inside he felt tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. Tired from explaining himself, tired from shrinking his feelings, tired from pretending disrespect was just joking, and the scariest part was he had gotten used to it. Toxic people, he learned, rarely announced themselves like villains. They arrive like comfort, like history, like familiarity, and that's why you don't see the damage at first. It began with small things. A friend named Ryan who always teased Daniel in front of others, calling it humor, but somehow those jokes always landed on Daniel's weak spots. A girlfriend, Mia, who said she loved him but rolled her eyes whenever he tried to talk about his goals. A cousin who borrowed money and disappeared, then returned with a smile and a new excuse. And a co-worker who took credit for Daniel's ideas while acting like a mentor to his face. None of it was one big explosion. It was a slow leak, a steady drain, the kind that empties your confidence quietly while you're busy telling yourself it's not that serious. Daniel kept choosing peace, but not real peace that came from silence, from swallowing words, from letting things slide so the day wouldn't turn into a fight. The problem was, every time he swallowed his truth, something inside him learned a dangerous lesson. Your feelings don't matter as much as keeping people, and that lesson didn't just stay in his friendships. It started shaping the way he looked at himself. He noticed he'd feel fine until his phone buzzed, and then his chest would tighten, because certain names on the screen didn't feel like connection. They felt like a test he kept failing, and he hated that he still answered. He would rehearse conversations in his head before meeting them, planning how to stay calm, how to not react, how to laugh at jokes that hurt, how to agree quickly so he wouldn't be called sensitive. And he didn't realize how abnormal that was until one Saturday morning when he woke up and felt heavy before anything even happened. He stared at the ceiling and thought, why do I feel stressed around people who are supposed to love me? That question scared him, so he pushed it away like he always did, got ready, and met Ryan and the group for coffee. They talked loud, laughed loud, and Daniel did what he usually did, smiled, nodded, tried to match their energy until Ryan leaned back and said, "Bro, Daniel talks about big dreams like he's gonna be somebody. Man, you're lucky you're even employed." And everyone laughed. Not a friendly laugh, but the kind that says, "We agree with him." Daniel felt the heat rise in his face, and for a second he wanted to speak, but his old habit kicked in. Don't ruin the vibe. Don't be dramatic. Don't make people uncomfortable. So he laughed too, a fake laugh that tasted like shame. And here's the part most people don't say out loud. Sometimes the reason you stay with toxic people isn't because you love them. It's because you're addicted to the hope that one day they'll finally treat you right. Daniel went home that day and tried to distract himself, but the laughter kept replaying in his head like a cruel echo. He opened social media, scrolled, watched other people living loud lives, and the more he scrolled, the smaller he felt. By night he was sitting alone, thinking about how much effort he put into people who never protected him the way he protected them. And if you're relating to this right now, do one thing for yourself before we continue. Hit like and subscribe to English and Star Story, because these stories are made for people who are tired of living with quiet pain and ready to choose themselves without guilt. Daniel didn't want revenge. He didn't want drama. He just wanted to understand why he kept accepting less than respect. So he started paying attention, like a man finally waking up. He noticed Ryan only called him when he needed something, help moving, a ride, a favor, a quick borrow of money, but never called to ask how Daniel was doing. He noticed Mia loved Daniel's attention but hated his boundaries, and every time he said, "I'm not comfortable with that," she acted like he was attacking her, flipping the problem onto him until he apologized for having feelings. He noticed his cousin's stories always sounded urgent until the moment Daniel said no. Then suddenly Daniel became selfish, and this pattern hit him like cold water. Toxic people don't get angry when you set boundaries. They get angry when you stop being easy to use. One evening, Daniel tried something small, something simple, something that felt like a tiny experiment. Mia texted him last minute, "I need you to cancel your plans. I'm bored. Come now." Normally he would run because he feared losing her, feared being seen as uncaring. But that night he typed back, "I can't tonight. I already made plans. I'll see you tomorrow." It was a respectful message. Normal, healthy, and her response came fast. "Wow, so you don't care about me. I knew it. Go enjoy your life. Don't bother." Daniel stared at the screen, heart racing, because the old part of him wanted to fix it immediately, wanted to call, apologize, reassure her, but another part of him whispered something new. If kindness is always punished, it's not love, it's control. He didn't reply for a full hour. That hour felt like walking through fire. He kept checking his phone like a person craving approval. But in that silence he noticed a truth he had never admitted. He was scared of their reactions because he had been trained to fear losing them more than losing himself, and that realization didn't feel empowering at first. It felt heartbreaking. He thought about his childhood, how he learned to be the good boy, the easy one, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who earned love by being useful, and he understood why he kept attracting and tolerating people who treated him like a resource instead of a human being. That night, Daniel wrote something on a piece of paper, something he'd never dared to say. My peace is not something I have to negotiate. He placed it on his desk like a warning sign to his old habits. But even with that promise, he wasn't suddenly strong. The next day Ryan called, casual as always, asking for a favor, and Daniel's stomach tightened. He could feel the pressure building. If I say no, he'll talk about me. If I say yes, I'll hate myself. He held the phone, breathing slowly, and for the first time he asked himself a new question that would change everything. Am I holding on to them because I love them, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I let go? That question stayed in Daniel's mind long after the call ended, echoing in the quiet corners of his thoughts like a truth that had been waiting years to be heard. And for the first time he didn't rush to silence it with distraction, noise, or excuses. Instead, he sat with the discomfort, because somewhere deep inside he knew that real change never begins with confidence. It begins with honesty. The next few days felt different, not easier, just clearer, like a fog slowly lifting to reveal a road he had been standing on all along. He began noticing patterns he once ignored, the way certain people only valued him when he was useful, the way conversations turned cold when he spoke about his own needs, and the way guilt was used like a quiet weapon to pull him back whenever he tried to step away. None of these realizations were dramatic on the surface, but inside they felt like earthquakes, shaking beliefs he had trusted his whole life. One evening he met Mia to talk, not to argue, not to accuse, just to speak honestly for the first time without fear guiding every word. His voice was calm but unfamiliar to his own ears as he said he needed respect, space, and understanding. Simple things that healthy love gives without negotiation. For a moment she stayed silent, and Daniel hoped, maybe this time she would listen, maybe this time things would change. But instead her face hardened, and the conversation quickly turned into blame, then guilt, then tears. The same emotional storm he had seen many times before. She said he was changing, becoming cold, selfish, distant, and each word tried to pull him back into the role he had always played, the one who apologizes just to keep the peace. His chest felt tight, memories rushing in, fear whispering that if he lost her he might lose everything familiar in his life. And this is the moment where most people surrender, not because they are weak, but because loneliness feels more frightening than pain they already know. Daniel felt that fear fully, standing right in the middle of it, but something inside him had grown stronger during the quiet days before this moment. He realized love that survives only when you abandon yourself is not love, it is attachment built on silence. So instead of apologizing, he simply said, I care about you, but I can't keep hurting myself to prove it. The words were gentle, but they carried a strength he had never used before. The silence that followed felt endless, heavy with endings neither of them wanted to name. When he finally walked away that night, there was no dramatic scene, just slow steps and a heart that felt both broken and strangely peaceful at the same time. The days after were the hardest he had known, because letting go of toxic people doesn't just remove pain. It removes routine, memories, comfort, and the illusion of certainty. His phone stayed quiet, and the silence felt louder than any argument. Doubt visited him constantly, telling him he overreacted, telling him he should call, apologize, fix everything like he always did. Some nights he almost did. Some nights he stared at her name on the screen, finger frozen, heart fighting a battle between old habits and new self-respect. Healing, he discovered, is not a straight road forward. It is a constant choice not to walk backward. During this time he spent more hours alone than ever before, and at first that loneliness felt like punishment, like proof that maybe toxic people were better than no people at all. But slowly, quietly, something unexpected began to happen. The silence stopped feeling empty and started feeling calm. Mornings became softer. His thoughts became less crowded. He laughed at small things again, not loudly, just honestly. And he realized something powerful. Peace often enters your life disguised as loneliness. Weeks later he met Ryan again by accident at a store, and the old tension returned for a moment. The instinct to impress, to please, to stay accepted. Ryan joked the same way, spoke the same way, treated him the same way, as if nothing had changed. And Daniel understood the truth in a single clear thought. Nothing had changed in Ryan. The only change was inside himself. For the first time he didn't laugh at the hurtful joke, didn't explain himself, didn't try to earn approval. He simply stayed calm, polite, distant. The conversation ended quickly, awkwardly, without the old energy that once connected them. Walking away, Daniel felt no anger, just clarity. Not every relationship needs closure. Some just need distance. That realization freed something deep inside him, something that had been trapped under years of fear and obligation. He began rebuilding his life in small, quiet ways, reading instead of scrolling, walking instead of overthinking, spending time with people who spoke gently instead of loudly. None of it looked dramatic from the outside, but inside it felt like learning to breathe again after years of holding air in his lungs. And if you are still here listening, maybe part of you is standing in the same painful space between holding on and finally letting go. Maybe you are waiting for a perfect sign, a clear answer, a moment without fear. But Daniel learned something important. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing peace while fear is still present. Months passed and the heaviness that once followed him everywhere slowly disappeared. Not completely, not magically, but enough for him to feel like himself again, or maybe for the first time ever. One quiet evening he realized he had gone an entire day without thinking about the people who once controlled his emotions, and that small realization felt bigger than any victory. Because the real proof of healing is not that the past disappears, it is that it stops controlling your present. And standing there in the calm of his new life, Daniel finally understood the lesson hidden inside all the pain he had survived. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, not from others, but from the version of yourself that believed you deserved less. Time kept moving, quiet and steady, and with each passing week Daniel felt something unfamiliar growing inside him. Not excitement, not sudden happiness, but a deep calm that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. The kind of calm he had searched for in people who were never capable of giving it. He began to understand that the hardest part of leaving toxic people is not the separation itself, but the moment you realize how long you accepted less than you deserved, and for a while that truth hurt more than the memories. Yet instead of running from that pain, he allowed it to teach him, because pain that is faced with honesty slowly turns into wisdom. One afternoon, while sitting alone in a quiet park, he watched families laughing, friends talking, strangers walking peacefully, with no idea how much emotional weight he had carried for years. And a simple thought crossed his mind with surprising clarity. Life was never meant to feel like constant survival. That moment didn't look important from the outside, but inside it felt like the final piece of a long, unfinished story finally finding its place. He realized he was no longer waiting for apologies that would never come, no longer replaying old conversations, no longer trying to prove his worth to people committed to misunderstanding him. The freedom was subtle but powerful, like chains dissolving instead of breaking. And in that quiet freedom he discovered something even deeper. Letting go of toxic people doesn't only change who is in your life, it changes how you see yourself. For the first time, he didn't feel like the extra person in his own story. He felt present, grounded, enough. Days turned into months, and slowly new connections entered his world. Not loudly, not dramatically, but gently, the way healthy things usually arrive. Conversations felt easy instead of exhausting. Laughter felt warm instead of sharp. Silence felt comfortable instead of tense. These small differences showed him a truth he wished he had known years earlier. Healthy relationships don't confuse your heart, they calm it. One evening during a simple dinner with new friends who respected him without effort, Daniel caught himself smiling for no reason, and that ordinary smile meant more than all the forced happiness he had performed in the past. Because this time it was real. And if you are listening right now, still holding someone who keeps hurting you, still hoping they will change, still afraid of the emptiness that might come after goodbye, Daniel's story carries a quiet message for you too. The loneliness you fear is often the doorway to the peace you deserve. Walking away will feel wrong at first, because you are breaking a pattern your heart memorized for years. But staying somewhere you are slowly breaking is far more painful than leaving once and healing fully. You are not selfish for protecting your peace, you are not cruel for choosing distance, and you are not weak for feeling scared while doing the right thing for your soul. Real strength is gentle, quiet, and sometimes invisible to everyone except the person who is finally breathing freely again. As the sun set that evening in the park, Daniel felt gratitude instead of regret. Not because everything in life was perfect, but because he was no longer betraying himself just to keep others comfortable. That single change transformed everything. He understood now that some people are only meant to be lessons, not lifelong companions, and holding them forever only delays the life waiting for you on the other side of courage. So if this story felt personal, if it sounded a little too familiar, maybe this is your moment to stop postponing your own peace. Maybe this is the sign you were quietly waiting for. And if these words reached your heart in any way, share this story with someone who might still be suffering in silence, because one message at the right time can change your life more than we realize. Also, tell us in the comments what step you know you need to take next, because your courage might inspire someone else to finally choose themselves too. And before you go, remember to like this video and subscribe to English Tutori, so more stories like this can keep reminding you of one simple truth that is easy to forget in a noisy world. The moment you stop holding toxic people is the moment you finally start holding your real life.